Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your day to attend the Illinois UCP Town Hall. As you hop on, if you have not already, please go ahead and enter your name, your company name, and your certifying agency in the chat. To begin our presentation today, I would like to introduce Deborah Lee, the Bureau Chief of Small Business Enterprises for the Office of Business and Workforce Diversity, to give our opening remarks. Deborah?
Thank you, Anna. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Deborah Lee, the Bureau Chief of Small Business Enterprises with the Illinois Department of Transportation. On behalf of the Illinois UCP, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. On October 3rd, 2025, the U.S. Department of Transportation issued an interim final rule that updates the regulations governing how disadvantaged business enterprise DBEs are certified. These changes require DBEs to submit additional information to their certifying agencies as part of the recertification process. In response, we have been working closely with our Illinois Unified Certification Program partners to develop a clear and efficient process to help DBEs navigate through these new requirements and complete their recertification in a timely manner. Our shared goal is simple: to help your businesses remain compliant while minimizing confusions and delays. From the start, we want to emphasize two key commitments. We see you and we hear you. We are committed to moving forward with clarity, urgency, and transparency. That said, there are still some details we're awaiting additional guidance on, and we'll be as open as possible as new information becomes available. Here's what you can expect from today's workshop. 1, a presentation that provides an overview of the U.S. DOT's interim final rule and how it impacts DBE certification. A breakdown of what information each firm must submit for recertification. Following the presentation, we'll open the floor for questions. Please type your questions into the chat, and we will answer these at the end of the presentation. Once again, I'm Deborah Lee with the Illinois Department of Transportation. Thank you for being here and for your continued partnership. Let's begin our presentation.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juan Pablo Prieto, and I serve as the Director of Diversity Programs at the Chicago Transit Authority. As a reminder, the Illinois Unified Certification Program, or ILUCP, is made up of 5 partner agencies: IDOT, the City of Chicago, the CTA, Metra, and PACE. We meet regularly to discuss DBE certification in Illinois to ensure that we are all processing certification applications in a uniform manner. Since the interim final rule was published, we have been meeting weekly and sometimes more often than that to ensure that the UCP is in full compliance of the DBE regulations and that we are able to complete the reevaluation process as quickly as possible. As a reminder, the DBE program is still the law, and all recipients of U.S. DOT funds must be in full compliance of the DBE regulations. The interim final rule, or IFR, was published by the U.S. Department of Transportation, or U.S. DOT, on October 3rd of last year. The IFR seeks to, quote, ensure that U.S. DOT operates its DBE and ACDBE programs in a non-discriminatory fashion in line with law and the U.S. Constitution. The changes in the IFR were effective immediately upon publication per U.S. DOT. These changes that are happening to these are changes that are happening to all UCPs and DBEs across the country, not just here in Illinois. The UCP partners had no say in these changes. We were obligated by law to implement them. The main changes of the IFR and why we're here today are around certification standards. The IFR removes the presumption of social disadvantage based on race and sex. The IFR requires that all firms currently certified as DBEs and ACDBEs be reevaluated for social and economic disadvantage by submitting a personal narrative and a personal net worth or P&W statement. This requirement will also be applied to all future applicants to the DBE and ACDBE programs. I'll now turn it over to Carrie to discuss the details around the personal narrative and P&W.
Thanks, Juan Pablo. Again, my name is Carrie Horner, and I'm the Acting DBE Program Administrator with PACE. So this next section, we will discuss the materials that are required to be submitted for your DBE reevaluation, which includes both your personal narrative and a personal net worth statement. So for current certified DBEs, your personal narrative and personal net worth statement, including any other financial information the owner considers relevant, must be sent to your certifying agency. So if you happen to be certified by PACE, you're going to be sending those documents, that personal narrative and personal net worth statement, to PACE and only PACE. And likewise, if you're certified with CTA or you're certified with IDOT or City of Chicago or Metric, you're going to be sending those documents strictly and only to your certifying agency. So the personal narrative. The personal narrative is a short written story written in your own words. When you're writing your personal narrative, only your description of your individual experiences and circumstances can be relied upon. The description of your experiences and circumstances must have occurred in American society. Your personal narrative must show that you satisfy certification requirements by a preponderance of the evidence, or that it is more likely than not that you are socially and economically disadvantaged. Your personal narrative must include sufficient detail to demonstrate that your experience has caused you to be socially and economically disadvantaged and have held you back from succeeding. So make sure, because this is what we have noticed when reading your personal narratives, you want to be as detailed as possible. Include that who, what, when, where, why, and how with each of your experiences when you're writing your personal narrative. Your personal narrative must show both social and economic disadvantages, and it must not rely in whole or in part on race or sex. What this really means is race and sex can be mentioned as part of your narrative, but only your description of your own individual experiences and circumstances can be relied upon when we're determining social disadvantage. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Giselle Cortez with City of Chicago. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Giselle Cortez, Managing Deputy for Certification Compliance here, City of Chicago. Following up on what Carrie just mentioned in regards to the personal narrative, it is imperative that we, and it was definitely looking for specific situations that have been experienced that have caused hardship and held you back from succeeding in education, employment, or business. Those are some of the 3 factors that are included within the IFR. You can include other references such as economic hardship, systemic barriers, and denied opportunities. And you should be describing how these obstacles, however they make up and set your story, have caused economic or financial harm, and how those have kind of held you back from success in today's world. The personal narrative, to be reevaluated, you must verify that your firm is at least 51% owned by socially economically disadvantaged individuals. Thus, you have to make sure that the personal narratives and the personal net worth statements are provided by enough people that make up that 51% of your firm's ownership. So if it's multiple people or a single person that make up that ownership for that 51%, they must each submit that document. There is no specific form of formatting that is required by the regulation, the IFR regulation. So we are seeing multiple submissions. If there is a specific kind of document you'd like to submit, we are not gauging that as a requirement, as long as it provides the information that you're submitting and that you're hitting the requirements in regards to the personal narrative and the personal net worth document. You must include sufficient detail. It's very important that you provide examples or the detail that demonstrates that it's more likely than not that your experiences have caused you to be socially and economically disadvantaged, and that how those have held you back from succeeding. And you can tie those all to the references like the economic, the systemic, and denied opportunities, and how those have caused harm, again, in education, employment, or business opportunities. A quick note here, under the FAQ that was issued, there was a question that we were able to receive an answer on in regards to the establishment of social disadvantage. So the question was, to establish social disadvantage through personal narrative, does a DBE owner need to meet all categories of economic hardship, systemic barriers, and denied opportunities as described in 49 CFR 26.67? The answer is no. Per the CFR, the DB owner must provide the certifier a personal narrative that establishes the existence of disadvantage by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning the majority of the majority. Certifiers must holistically evaluate all presented evidence, before making a determination, consideration may include education factors such as unequal treatment compared to all similarly situated persons, employment factors such as those unequal treatment compared to similarly situated persons in hiring, and business history factors such as unequal access compared to all similarly situated persons. Other relevant evidence may be considered, but the incidents or experiences discussed in the narrative must not rely in or in part solely on race or sex. So in essence, the answer says that you must provide, you may not have an experience within each one of those factors, but the majority of the experience must be a majority of the majority that you're submitting in regards to what those factors and those specific situations you've encountered through your venture as a business or firm. And with that, I will turn it over to Myron.
Thanks, Gio. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Myron Marshall. I am the Diversity and External Affairs Manager with IDOT. I just want to pause here for a second and just recognize I see a bunch of questions coming in through the chat. Thank you for submitting them. Just want to acknowledge that. We will work to answer those questions once we get to the Q&A portion of this presentation. So thank you. Please keep those questions coming. So what I'm going to talk about here is the personal net worth statement, and it's in addition to that personal narrative that we talked about earlier. So this personal net worth statement should already be something you are familiar with, as it is the exact same form you would have had to submit to your certifying agency when you originally applied for your certification as a DBE. You can find this personal net worth form located on the U.S. Department of Transportation's website. And we'll send a link to some of these items after this presentation is included in this presentation here. When you fill out this form, you have to list all of your assets and all of your liabilities. And when you list all those out and they're calculated, there's a cap, right? So the cap remains at $2,047,000, and that is per owner. That is not as a collective. So each individual who submits their information to be considered for reevaluation of disadvantage, that's the cap. So I'm going to go into a little bit of some tips for this personal net worth form. Please, please, please do not leave any space blank. We're trying to get firms quickly move through this process of reevaluation. So with that said, please make sure that you don't leave anything blank to limit the back and forth between you and your certifying agency. If you're married, you have the ability to split the shared assets and liabilities. Make sure you note that on your form. And then the last thing, we cannot emphasize this enough, please provide all supporting documentation. If you think that it helps you to shore up your numbers and to make the case, or ensure that there's not any questions that are asked, please include that. Try to be as detailed as possible. Don't leave anything left on the table. I think that's it for me. So other important notes for the personal narrative and personal net worth statements. Please make sure that all of your information, all of the documents are signed and submitted again to the same certifying entity which you originally certified. If you're originally certified by CTA, please submit your information to CTA. If you were originally certified by IDOT, please submit your information to IDOT. And this applies to all of the rest of the Illinois UCP partners that we have. Include all statements for all of those individuals that are placing the submission. Include statements for all of them. And then you make sure that you indicate that ownership percentage for each of the individuals for whom you are submitting statements. And then one of the last things I'm going to say, and this is really important, is that submission date. That submission date is coming up fast, is January 31st of this year. If you are not able to meet that submission date, that does not mean that your firm it loses its status as a DBE. You're not going to be decertified. That just means you'll be ineligible to work as a DBE on projects until you go through this reevaluation process and submit your information. So meeting this deadline means that you will be in that first tranche or that first kind of batch of firms that are going to be looked upon for or considered for reevaluation or recertification. So with that said, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Anna, who's going to give a little bit more tips and tricks for the submission of the personal narrative and personal network statements.
Thank you. I'm going to speak about interstate certification. Right now, UCPs are not required to reevaluate the certifications of DBEs that obtain certification from the UCP through the interstate certification procedures, and that comes straight from the regulations. DBEs that receive certification through UCPs with interstate certification will have their certifications reevaluated by the UCP in their jurisdiction of original certification. If such DBEs are recertified by their home state, they will be required to reapply for interstate certification with the UCPs of their jurisdictions in which they wish to be certified. And just to put that in layman's terms, if you are a firm that your home state is not Illinois, you will need to get with your home state first before seeking interstate certification with Illinois. And if you are a home state Illinois firm and you have certifications in other states, you will need to get recertified in Illinois first before seeking those certifications elsewhere. And this is just to reiterate what has been said about the burden of proof. The firm has the burden of proof of demonstrating by a preponderance of the evidence, which is more likely than not, that it satisfies all the requirements in this subpart. In determining whether the firm has met its burden, the certifier must consider all the information in the record viewed as a whole, and that is straight from the regulations as well. And also that decertification during this reevaluation process under the interim final rule is not subject to the same procedures as other types of decertification. If you are denied through this process of with the interim final rule, you will appeal directly to USDOT. Again, your personal narrative and personal net worth statement are due to be submitted to your certifying agency of a submission date of January 31st, 2026. That is here in just a couple weeks. And like Myron said, you are not decertified if you do not make that submission date, but you are placed in our second batch of reevaluations once everyone who did submit by that due date has been reviewed and reevaluated. This screen here is the main point of contact for each of the certifying agencies. If you have specific questions as it relates to your firm or how you need to submit your information, please contact the main person here on the screen for your certifying agency. And that completes the presentation portion. We do have questions in the chat that we will start answering here shortly. If you do have any other questions, please continue putting those in the chat and we will answer those as they come in. The first question that we received was current goals. If current solicitations do not have goals, when do you foresee that the goals will be reinstated? When will we be similar or will they be the similar or the same that they were prior to the IFR?
I can jump in and speak from CTA standpoint. If a solicitation does not have a goal, we would need to award it. If the contract is awarded without a goal, then there won't be a goal added to it. I hope I'm addressing that question. If you're talking about contracts, active contracts with goals, we're not able to count participation during this reevaluation period. But once the reevaluation period is over, we will resume counting DBE credit as normal.
Thank you. The next question we have here is, can I upload a very short video? If so, how do I do it? And if not, can I deliver a thumb drive with the short video for my personal narrative?
Again, this is Deborah Lee with IDOT. At this time, we don't have the resources established for video. We are asking for written personal narratives and personal net worths. So at this time, we're unable to accept a video.
Thank you. The next question I see is, can you please provide an example of a similarly situated non-disadvantaged individual? Myron, will you go back to that FAQ slide that we had? Here, yes. So they're asking if we could provide an example of what it means to be similarly situated, non-disadvantaged individual.
I'll jump in here and just say that this is language directly out of the regulations and out of the interim final rule, not language that the UCP put together. And so we're reading it as plain language as you are. So we were not provided any examples from USDOT.
Thank you. The next question we have here is, can each agency here provide information on how many DBEs have successfully completed the reevaluation process and approximately how long it takes to go through this process?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to give out that information. It varies based on information received. I can say we are diligently going through each one, and we are evaluating as necessary.
Yeah, from the CTA standpoint, we have reached a decision on more than half of the submissions that we've received. And to Deborah's point, the timeline really does depend on what we receive. We are able to send submissions back and request more information or clarifying information if they're not complete or we need more details, especially in the personal narrative. So we do have, our requests for information that are outstanding. So I will say the timeline really does depend on what we get in the submission and how quickly the DB then gets back any requested information. If we get a narrative that we're able to review and a personal net worth statement that's full and complete, we're getting through them in about 5 to 7 business days.
I would say similarly with what CTA has said with PACE 2, it's that detail, that personal narrative. If we can get through that, there's enough detail. It's meeting all the points that's required in the IFR. And then also the details of making sure everything, if necessary, you're providing that supportive documentation with your personal net worth statement. There's nothing left blank, or there's the figures all do agree, then that does make the review a little bit smoother. It does take some time to review that, and then we'll get that back to you. So don't hesitate when you're sending something. This is what I do tell people. We're going to review it, and if we do have a question, we're going to reach back out to you and say, hey, we do need you to expand on this because you mentioned this, and this is great, your experience, but at the same time, we do need a little bit more detailed information. That's why when we went over the personal narrative, be as detailed as possible with your narrative. Include that who, what, when, where, why, and how with each of your experiences. So I would say we have a turnaround, sometimes 7, maybe a little bit longer, depends on how many of the narratives and personal net worth statements we're getting in at all one time, because they seem to come in like groups all at once. And then we also give you 5 days. If we do send a request for additional information, we do give you 5 days to respond back with answers to those questions.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Sutton, and I'm speaking on behalf of Metra. And just like the other agencies had stated, we are doing our best to get through the personal narratives in addition to the personal net worth statements. Basically, it just depends on the business owner. We always want to keep an open lines of communication, and we to receive the information that's needed to continue the process and move the process along.
Right, thank you. The city of Chicago is in the same boat. We're trying to process these as soon as we can. We do have pending information requests that are out. Some contractors already reached out. So we're working with them to try and get those responses as soon as possible. So it is a process in place, and we're hoping to have this resolved.
Thank you all. The next question we received is, will the Illinois UCP disregard statements or experiences referencing race or sex, or take a harder stance that if a person references those items, it is an automatic denial?
I can say for PACE, we've had some narratives that do come in, but the detail of the narrative itself, it's not saying, hi, I'm a woman and I'm disadvantaged, and then goes on to the next line. That would definitely, we would reach back out and say, hey, race and gender, sex is not a reliance to determine social and economic disadvantage. So you can mention it as part of your story, as a part of your narrative, but at the same time, what we're looking at is really the substance of what your experience is, not relying on that sex or race for that determination. Hopefully that helps answer that question.
Yeah, same. I think across all of us, you can mention it. It just your narrative cannot rely upon it, and so mentioning it, referencing it is fine in the narrative. We will not be automatically denying anything that references that. But like Carrie said, if we need more detail, we'll be reaching out and saying, we need more details. You didn't give us enough in the narrative. Do you have more?
Thank you all. The next question we received is, should your wife's assets and liabilities get added in or left out of your personal net worth statement?
For your personal net worth statement, you're only including your share of the asset. So if you jointly own that asset with your spouse, then you're going to split that and only include your own share. So you want to make sure you're leaving out your spouse's share if you jointly own it. Now, if you have a car and it happens to be your car and you own that car, then you're going to report that car. But if you jointly own the car, then you're going to report 50% of that ownership of that car in your personal net worth statement.
Thanks, Carrie. The next question we received is, how have any firms been successfully reevaluated?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's pretty accurate for most of the agencies
Yes,
here.
yeah.
Yes, across the board.
Yeah.
The next question, for those of us who are working to get DBE certification, does that January 31st deadline mean anything? If we apply before that, will we get processed faster?
So the January 31st deadline is a deadline that we have placed to initially get applications or personal narratives and personal net worths submitted. All of the UCPs have to complete this process before anything moves forward. And so we wanted to put a deadline in place to get those in, and anything accepted after that, it's not that it won't be evaluated, it's just that it will be evaluated in the first grouping. And so that allows us to close that portion, complete that evaluation, and then we move forward. So it's not anything hard and fast. If you submitted it before, it doesn't mean that you'll get those processed any faster. Each one is dealt individually, and it varies based on information received. And I think that that's pretty accurate across the UCP.
Yeah, I think I'm reading the question a little differently. They may be asking about a new application. The UCP is not taking any new applications during this reevaluation period. So hopefully we're answering either Deborah's answer or my answer that question. But if you are not yet DB certified, you would need to wait until we're done with this reevaluation process to submit a new DB application.
Thanks, JP and Deborah. The next question kind of piggies back off of that same question. It asks, for those of us who are working to get DBE certified in terms of staffing or software development projects, is one agency, IDOT versus CTA or others, better to apply than for others in terms of project availability or budget allocation?
No.
No.
Yeah. I think all of us here have opportunities that could potentially be open for anyone. IDOT, CDOT, IDOT, City of Chicago, CTA, Metro, and PACE. So whether you certify with the City of Chicago or IDOT, you'll be able to submit bids for those projects as long as you are certified.
Thank you. The next question we received, are there any tips or tricks based on submittals you have received and evaluated for recertification?
I could throw a couple tips in there based on some of the City of Chicago submissions. We encourage a lot of detail, right? Because I think detail can develop the story that you're putting there. Again, this is your story. So if you decide to start it from the very beginning and bring it up to where you are now or where you were at the time when you were developing your business, the details really make your case and give us the specific circumstances that you personally have gone through. For us, the detail really helps us kind of define the overall picture of your specific situation.
Thank you.
I will also add to that, there's business support organizations that we all work with as well that have assistance for those putting together personal narratives. To Jesse's point, it is your story, but they're helping owners and companies put that narrative together in a concise way that's easier and quicker for us to process. We don't want to limit how much you can tell us, but the quicker we can understand the narrative and see and understand the disadvantage, the quicker we can process it. So there are business support organizations out there that can help you as well.
And just to add on detail, give examples. So if you had said, like, I was denied this loan as a result of, well, when were you denied that loan? Who denied you that loan? What was that dollar amount that you were seeking, and what was truly that impact then of not getting that loan? So think of things like that when we're talking about the detail. Give those specific type of information too. So otherwise, we're going to reach out and ask you for that. So.
And I would just like to add, I just want to share an example. If you don't know where to start when preparing your personal narrative, I've actually seen personal narratives start actually when the individual business owner was a child. They started off as a child, going through school, college, working in the corporate America, and then starting their own business. So that was a great example of personal narrative that was presented because it actually told us the story from the actual beginning. So again, if you don't know where to start, just start off from your childhood.
Thank you. The next question we received for the PNW, when you have a husband and wife ownership of 5149, how should the PNW be presented? And I'll just say that
Yeah.
if the ownership is 5149, we are only looking for a PNW for the 51% owner as they are the majority owner of the firm. So you would not submit one for your wife, but yes, if you do have joint accounts and things like that, because you are married, you would present that as half. Next question here. We currently do not have DBE certification. How do I determine the certifying agency? If you are not currently certified as a DBE, then you do not have a certifying agency. We had spoke a little bit about new applications. Any firm or anyone on here who is looking to get DBE certified will have to wait until we are done as a UCP with the reevaluation process before we will accept any new applications. We do foresee that USDOT will publish a brand new application that will most likely include this personal narrative as part of the certification process, but we are waiting on them to see when they do publish the new application. The next question we received, if home states do not start the reevaluation process, even they are not collecting PNs and PNWs, what should we do for interstate certification?
Unfortunately, you have to wait. If your home state is not Illinois, you have to wait until your home state completes the reevaluation process to then submit an interstate application here in Illinois. So you'd have to wait till your home state finishes the reevaluation process and you're approved, and then wait until we're done to be able to receive it.
Thank you. The next question you received, do we know when the agencies will finish all of the reevaluations? Is there a tentative date or a month to anticipate?
At this time, we don't have a date or a tentative timeline. We are requesting that all PNs and PNWs get submitted so that we can complete the evaluation process. That has to be done first. And so once we complete that, then we'll, and as we obtain more information, we will try and share out what we can.
And firms that submit should be receiving a letter once a decision is made. And that in that letter, though, it will note that you'll get a subsequent letter when the UCP has finished the reevaluation process. So we will communicate via letter when the reevaluation process is complete.
Thank you. The next question we have here is, do the PNW and personal narrative require supporting documentation? And I will just kind of answer that. For the personal narrative, the supporting documentation for a personal narrative would be all the detail that you provide in your experiences. That should be enough in your personal narrative to not have to give us any other additional documents. As far as your PNW, yes, if you are close to that threshold of 2,047,000, then yes, I would provide bank statements or retirement account statements to go along with your PNW. The next question here is, Personal narrative. Can you describe what it means to have a preponderance of evidence?
So it just means more likely than not. So after we're done, we're done reading the personal narrative, it is more likely than not that you are disadvantaged.
Thank you. The next question here, for the $2,047,000 for the PNW, it says per owner disadvantage cap, a half paid home and half paid car will only count for the amount that is owned by the individual, correct?
With your question, if you're talking about a half-paid home, if it's your primary residence, your personal residence, that's excluded from your personal net worth calculation. We still do ask for that information. I think it's on the very last page of the PNW form. Forgot which worksheet it is. So you still need to include it there, but that's not included on that first page, which shows assets and liabilities. So primary residence excluded, mortgage for your primary residence, that is excluded. However, that ownership for that car, that if you have a joint ownership of the car, then you're going to split that 50-50. And so only reporting your share of that ownership for that vehicle.
Thank you. The next question I see here is, are there enough recertified firms to justify DBE goals?
We cannot start, for the IFR, we cannot start placing DBE goals onto contracts until we finish the reevaluation period.
Thank you. The next question, will the Illinois UCP engage in a back and forth with the applicant to request or suggest clarifying facts be included in a revised narrative? And I'll just answer that yes. As the analyst reviews your submission, if they think that there needs to be more information or they need clarifying information, a request for information letter will be sent to the firm, granting you so many days to get that updated information back to them. The next question I see says, what if I want to change ownership and do a personal narrative for my son? Is this considered a new application? And she said that the website appears to show that no new applications are being accepted.
If it's a new entity, then I would presume that it would definitely be a new application.
Yeah.
Currently, we're not taking new applications.
Yeah, if it's a currently certified firm and you're doing a change of ownership,
Yeah.
that's a good question. I don't think we've discussed that. We could take that internally and post that as part of a question that we get. We have to discuss that internally. And we're not trying to not answer the question, Michelle. It's just we want to make sure that we're doing, again, acting as a unified body here and everyone's doing the same thing. So we'll take that to our next UCP meeting, discuss it and have an answer.
Thank you. Next question, if a company's home certifying state has not started their process and therefore the company will not be able to submit their recertification documents before January 31st, how will those companies be notified on when they will be able to send in their information? Also, will the companies that miss the deadline still be considered as recertifying or will they be considered as a new applicant?
So if your home state is not Illinois, then you're not, you don't need to send in a personal narrative and personal net worth. You have to go through your home state's reevaluation process once. So let's just take, for example, your home state is Indiana. Once Indiana and Illinois are both done with your reevaluation period, assuming that you're reapproved, you would then send your interstate application to an Illinois agency. And then to the second question, we're not decertifying any firm that misses the deadline. If we finish the reevaluation period and firms have not sent it in, you would just be marked as ineligible to participate in the DBE program.
Michelle had another question. She said, what about change in ownership notifications? She said the website does not appear to allow this information even under the next link.
Yeah, again, I think that's something that we'll have to discuss. I don't know if any of the other partners have thoughts, but I don't think we've discussed that.
I'm in agreement with you. We need to take that back internally and discuss, and then we can provide an answer.
Next question here, if a firm is not currently DBE certified, wait to apply until when? If you are not currently certified as a DBE, we do anticipate USDOT publishing a new application, and we will not accept any new applications until we are done with this reevaluation process. And right now that is kind of to be determined. The next question here is, who is reviewing the personal narrative and personal net worth statements for IDOT? And I'll just answer that. We do have a certification department, and the analysts prior to the IFR who were looking at initial applications, those are the same analysts who are now looking at these PN and PNW. So we do have a team of analysts looking at these. Next question. Do all firms need to wait until every DBE firm has completed recertification before they can begin bidding on projects?
So to be clear, you do not need to be DBE certified to bid on any of our work. We obviously, you need to be DBE certified to count for, again, towards DBE goals when we have goals. But just because we're in this process does not mean you should stop bidding. You should continue bidding on our projects, on our contracts, both as prime and as subs, working with prime contractors that you've built relationships with. So I want to make sure that primes and subs alike hear that message, is that we expect and encourage firms to continue to bid on our work. But we have to wait until the reevaluation period is complete. The process is complete in order to set goals and count credit again on current contracts.
That is concurrence across the UCP.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Next question here. For companies that submitted their DBE application prior to October 3rd, what will happen to their application? And I will say for IDOT, if you submitted before October 3rd and you had not been processed as of yet, your application was returned to you. Next question here. Someone said we may have already answered this. What will happen to the DBE status if owners cannot meet the deadline?
Again, if you miss that deadline, just get it in when you can. We're doing our best to process them as quickly as possible, but we imagine that on January 31st, we will receive a lot of submissions, and so our teams will be busy reviewing all of these. So get it in when you can, and we'll process it in the order that it came in. If we finish and this is from the guidance, the last guidance that was published by USDOT, if we finish the reevaluation process and a firm has not submitted, they will just be deemed ineligible to participate in the DBE program.
The next question here is, can you share the names of the companies that are providing assistance? For IDOT, for IDOT, we have supportive services consultants throughout the entire state who can assist our certified DBE firms. And following this, we can send that in a follow-up email along with all the agencies, their services that they provide for support.
Yeah, I would contact your certifying agency to see what that agency has to provide. For CTA, I can say we have a list of our business support organizations on our website. If you go to transitchicago.com/diversity-programs, there's a link there for our business support organizations, and that has all the contact information for them.
Next question I see here. If one of the Illinois UCP certifying agencies originally certified a company, but was then transferred to another state, can the company still recertify with their original certifying Illinois UCP agency? And to me, I'm thinking this means that you are a home state of Illinois firm, and then you sought interstate certification with other states after getting certified in Illinois.
Or do you mean you were originally certified in Illinois and then you moved your business to another state and then had to get certified in that other state, such as the example earlier, you moved to Indiana and your business is Indiana, and so you got certified in Indiana, and then you're just interstate now with Illinois. It's your home state where your business is located, who's certified you, where you're located now is where you need to complete that personal narrative and personal net worth statement. If I answer that correctly, if that's the question, if that's what you mean. Because I know we've had some firms that have been certified in Illinois and then they've moved their business to another state and we're no longer their host agency in Illinois because their business now is another state. So maybe send in the chat like a clarification on that question if we didn't answer it correctly.
Thank you. Next question I see is, I just found that we have an expired DBE certificate. It says expired in 2019. Can we renew during this time, or is this considered a new application?
That'd be a new application. If you're not, you'd have to check with that certifying agency to make sure that they actually decertified you. You're still in the directory then. You're still in the directory.
Next question here is, so firms that don't meet the deadline won't get decertified. What if they try to submit their narrative on February 1st or after? That is correct. If you do not make that January 31st deadline, that does not mean you are decertified. You can still submit after that January 31st deadline. However, you will be processed in the order you are received once we review all of those who did come in by that deadline of January 31st.
And just to reiterate, right, we're not establishing the deadline to penalize those who don't make the deadline. We establish a deadline so that we can continue moving this process forward. Because if we don't establish a date and we're just stuck in this reevaluation process forever, then again, we can't set goals and we can't come credit. So we want to get as many firms to submit as quickly as possible so we can finish as quickly as possible and be able to return back to setting goals.
Thank you. The next question I see here says, will this presentation and video be available to stream? And yes, you will receive a follow-up email with a copy of the presentation, and then the video will be posted on the IDOT website and our IDOT YouTube channel. And I will provide the recording to the other certifying agencies, and they will be able to post it as well as they see fit. And then Michelle asked again, can they ask for an extension on the deadline, say to February 15th? If you do not submit it by that January 31st deadline, you don't have to ask for an extension. You just get that information to us as soon as possible. We know that there are firms that may not meet that deadline, but yes, you are still able to send your information in as soon as you have it available and ready. I do not see any more questions. It looks like we did answer those.
Hey,
Um,
and hey, Anna, we do have a question in the Q&A box.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that question is, if you already submitted your P&W statement, how will you be contacted if your reevaluation is successful? Good question.
With IDOT, we will be sending decision letters out to every firm that we have made a decision on. We just have not started that process as of yet.
If you're certified with CTA and we've reached a decision, you should have received a letter already. If you have not received a letter or a request for information, we're still reviewing your submission. But you can always reach out to Ben. His email is on the slide that'll be sent out to ask for a status update.
And the same with Metra. Once the reevaluation process has been completed, you will be notified via email in addition to a letter that will be sent in the mail.
Same with PACE. You'll get an email with a letter with our decision after we finish the reevaluation process. But like CTA mentioned, if you have questions or are curious on the status, if you're a DBE certified by PACE, just don't hesitate to give me a call. Contacts on the last page, or send me an email.
That is accurate as well for the city of Chicago. You will be receiving a recertification letter. And unless there's a RFI for some work, we will reach out and figure out exactly where it is in case you have any questions. Thank you.
Myron, will you go back to the slide with the contact information just so everyone has that?
While he's pulling up that slide, it looks like Michelle was having trouble hearing us on the question around sending a video. None of us are accepting videos. We're all only accepting written submissions. So it has to be, either a Word doc, PDF, but in writing. The personal narrative must be in writing for us to review it.
Thank you. I do not see any other questions at this time. Please continue putting those in the chat. We will stay on here to make sure that we answer everyone's questions. I do not see any other questions. We will stay on for just a few more minutes. We would like to thank you all for hopping on today and getting this information. We know how important it is for you to remain certified. I hope we have clarified some questions and concerns that you may have. Please remember that you will receive a follow-up email after this, most likely by the end of the day today, that will have some helpful links, a copy of the PowerPoint, and directions for each certifying agency. I do see one more question that just popped in here. Since I was originally certified in Chicago and also Florida, how do I confirm my home agency?
It's wherever you're.
This is your home business. Yeah. Your headquarters.
Yeah, wherever you're headquartered. If you're headquartered in Chicago or in Illinois and the city was your original certification agency, then that's it. And please spread the word to other firms, other firms that are certified as DBs. If they have not heard of the process or have questions, please tell them to contact their certifying agency so that we can help walk them through this process. We want as many of you all to submit as possible.
Someone else just said, I am new to these opportunities. Can you please send me a link to watch what the process is from the very first step? Are you meaning for this reevaluation process, or are you meaning for like to get certified? If you could clarify.
Or do you mean to bid on our work?
He stated to get certified, to bid on work, and this. You will receive a follow-up email with this PowerPoint presentation, so that will at least cover this interim final rule and the information that you need to submit if you already are a certified firm. To get certified right now, because that is put on hold, so there is no application right now or anything out there for getting DBE certified. And then as far as bidding on work, I can provide a couple links in the chat as far as like the Illinois bid buy system and things like that. But if you are not a certified firm right now, right, the new application process is on hold.
For CTA, we hold a monthly webinar called Driving Small Businesses the Distance, where we talk about getting certified and bidding on our work. So look out for the announcement and that schedule for this year so that you can join when the subject that you're looking for pops up. Like Anna said, right now we're not accepting new applications. So that session will most likely be delayed until after the reevaluation period is complete.
And with PACE, if you happen to see the screen where it had contact information, you can just always send an email to PACE and I can share the information on upcoming solicitations, how to bid on PACE projects and stuff like that.
And the same thing with Metra. I'm Michelle Sutton. You can contact me with the contact information that was listed on the PowerPoint presentation.
I think that concludes all questions, everyone. I'm going to stop recording now.